This is an NBC News special report. Here is Tom Brokaw in New York.
Good evening. 24 hours after it began, the hijacking of that Egyptian airliner ended tonight on the Mediterranean island of Malta. It ended in a burst of gunfire and exploding grenades. It ended at a very high price indeed. At least 50 people died as Egyptian commandos stormed the plane at Valletta Airport. Terrorists had taken over Flight 648 shortly after takeoff at Athens Airport yesterday on a flight to Cairo. 97 passengers and crew on board, including 3 Americans. The terrorists forced the plane down at Malta. There were endless negotiations, the terrorists making no specific demands except to refuel. They then killed 1 passenger, reportedly an American woman, and threw her body off the plane. They released others. Hours passed when the drama suddenly ended tonight. The carnage began almost instantly as Egyptian commandos burst into the plane through a cargo door. The other doors had been locked. They came onto the plane with guns blazing, but the hijackers heard the assault coming and they launched one of their own. The hijackers pulled the pins from 3 hand grenades and threw them right into the terrified passengers still on board. Of those not killed by the grenades, many were caught in a crossfire. The smoke and the gunfire went on and on. The fire spread throughout the plane, trapping those inside. The pilot called the hijackers first-class killers, and when one of them tried to kill him, the pilot fought back, killing the hijacker with an axe. The 5 hijackers were killed in the assault, but in one of the bloodiest endings ever for a hijacking, 50 of the passengers died as well. 50. And through it all, the smoke and the terror continued. It was a high price in terms of lives lost, but a spokesman for the Maltese government said tonight what happened was unavoidable.
And there was one murder, the person who was killed, the government decided that once murder had been committed, it would not give in to the hijackers' demand for refueling. Obviously, we are very sorry for the way things turned out, but according to the captain, there was no other way out. He said that the hijacker, every time he killed a person, he went inside the aircraft singing and dancing. So the captain realized that he was a madman. These are the words of the captain.
And the captain killed one of those hijackers, as I say, with an emergency axe on board the plane. Still no names of the hijackers, although in a brief radio conversation, one said that he was a member of something called Egypt's Revolutionaries, militants believed responsible for the assassination of an Israeli diplomat in Cairo in August. The Egyptian government tonight, in describing the commando action a success, makes no mention of casualties, nor does Cairo radio and television. The United States government says assault was a difficult choice, but it is in full support tonight. And NBC News correspondent Ann Garrels is at the State Department.
Hours before the raid, Secretary of State Shultz endorsed the use of force and once again expressed his disgust with terrorists.
We must stamp out this terrorist activity. These people are not worth a time of day. They're not even people.
U.S. officials say the U.S. was prepared to use force to end the hijacking and offered assistance. That assistance was turned down. From the very beginning, it was determined that the Egyptians should take the lead. U.S. officials say that after Mubarak was so heavily criticized for his handling of the Achille Lauro affair, it was important for him to show that he could handle this incident on his own. When it was all said and done, the U.S. government praised Egyptian firmness, although they called it a hard decision. The problem, though, now is officials are wondering if it couldn't have been handled a little differently. Questions are cropping up. Was the raid really well planned? Was the timing appropriate? Had the Egyptians done everything possible to establish conditions on the plane? Tom?
Thanks very much. Ann Garrels at the State Department tonight. And so to the list of Americans caught up in this international nightmare of terrorism, 3 more names are added this weekend. Jackie Nink Flug of Texas, who was shot in the head but who is recovering. Patrick Baker of White Salmon, Washington, reportedly injured but not seriously. And Scarlett Rosenkamp of Oceanside, California, unaccounted for. She may have been murdered and thrown off the airplane. All the latest innocent American victims of mindless international terrorism. We'll have continuing coverage of this story on NBC tomorrow morning, beginning with NBC News at sunrise, followed by Today. I'll see you tomorrow night on NBC Nightly News. For now, I'm Tom Brokaw. Good night from all of us at NBC News from New York.